Hi, Paul.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How are the COVID numbers looking at the hospital?
So they're unfortunately they spiked over the weekend. We were down to 20 and now we're back up to about 30, which is a little bit disconcerting. But there's
Okay, the other Tom. Tom Reardon.
Yes.
You have to, it's roll call to vote, to sign in. So state your name and say present.
Tom Reardon, present.
Okay, Susan Sardina.
Susan Sardina, present.
Susie Wadsworth
Susie Wadsworth, present.
and Mike Dickey.
Michael Dickey, present.
Okay, who's missing? Eric. He's here, he's out in his kitchen. And yeah, he's getting ready to log on. Dick Caroff, I don't think joined us either on phone or computer, but
Yeah, I don't see
if you
him.
see him call in, put him on. Okay, so that we've got a quorum. Oh, and also tonight, Meg Wheeler. I meant to tell everybody about you last week, Meg. I'm sorry I missed. Meg is
That's okay.
on the advisory board and is going to be filling them in on all the stuff we do. And you're on the school committee.
No,
No. What do you, oh, you're on advisory and I thought you were on school too.
just advisory.
Ah, okay. Not
That's
that.
enough.
big.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Do we have a nomination for chairman?
Russ Panetti.
Anyone want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Susan
Yeah,
Sardina,
we have
aye.
to do it in a,
Suzanne
Reardon,
Wadsworth,
aye.
aye.
all right. Tom Callahan,
Aye.
Susie Wadsworth,
Suzanne Wadsworth, aye.
Michael,
Mike Dickey, aye.
Eric.
Eric Eisner, aye.
Okay. Vice Chair, anybody want to make a nomination?
Tom Reardon.
I'll
Keep
second
going.
that. Okay, roll call vote. Dr.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Hubert. Tom.
Aye.
Susan,
Susan Sardina, aye.
Susie,
Susie Wadsworth, aye.
Michael,
Mike Dickey, aye.
and Eric.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, I think. The plaque for the Cohasset Historical Society, I got the cost on it. Look at it, $680 for the plaque and $80 for installation. Anybody have any questions on that? Should we go ahead and do it, or?
I vote we go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Suzanne
I'll make a
Wadsworth.
motion.
I make a motion that we approve the plaque for the Cohasset Historical Society.
Second?
I'll second. Susan, second.
Okay, a roll call vote. Paul?
Paul Schubert, aye.
Tom Reardon, aye.
There's Tom.
Aye.
Susan Sardina?
Susan Sardina, aye.
Mike Dickey?
Michael Dickey, aye.
And Susie?
Susie Wadsworth, aye.
Eric?
Eric Eisner, aye.
Okay. Then next on the agenda is the Cohasset Youth Baseball and Softball Association. They're looking to do ADA improvements. I assume everybody got the rather lengthy application and have reviewed it. Is Mark Chase waiting to make the presentation? Angela?
Is Mark's name.
You're doing even better than I am. I don't see his name.
All right,
There
Okay.
he is.
I think I am there. Can you
There
hear
he
me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Russ?
I can?
Good.
It's all yours, Mark.
Okay, thank. Well, good evening, Russ, Tom, Paul, and other CPC members. Thank you for allowing us to come before your committee to make our requests. My name is Mark Chase. I'm the president of the Cohasset Youth Baseball and Softball Association, CYBSA. And with me, I believe, are Andy Sims, CYBSA Softball Vice President, and John Cavanaro, Principal of Cavanaro Consulting, who will present and/or provide technical support for some of our requests. CYBSA is the nonprofit 501c3 organization that operates the Little League baseball and softball programs in Cohasset. We have more than 400 Cohasset children and their families participating in our various activities. We strive to offer our kids and their families the best possible overall experience within our financial means. This effort, of course, requires considerable resources, both financial and through the hard work provided by the many dedicated volunteers in our organization. CYBSA is endeavoring to raise funds to meet the ever-growing demands of our vibrant baseball and softball community while trying to keep our fees as affordable as possible. Moving forward, our financial needs are substantial in order to maintain an up-to-date facility in a safe, family-friendly environment that Cohasset and all its residents can be proud of. We come before the CPC now to request CPC funds for the following much-needed projects. 1, completion of ADA compliance work at Barnes Complex. 2, restoration of the Deer Hill softball field. And 3, field improvements at Barnes Complex. 1, the completion of ADA compliance work at Barnes Complex. The history is in the Cohasset Open Space and Recreation Plan 2019 and 2026, published around 2018, Barnes Complex was cited for some ADA deficiencies. CYBSA initiated a plan to correct those deficiencies in 2 phases. Phase 1 began in 2018 with us purchasing 3 ADA compliant bleachers, 1 for each field, to provide a hospitable environment for the handicapped to enjoy viewing baseball and softball games. Also in phase 1, we engaged Cavanaro Consulting to prepare an engineering plan that would bring us into compliance with federal and state ADA requirements. Phase 2 is the implementation of the Cavanaro engineering plan and the subject of this proposal. The plan consists of the following projects. 1, concrete work around the snack shack to provide handicap access to the restrooms and make the snack shack area ADA compliant. 2, install a drainage system, including catch basins, piping, crushed stone, etc., to mitigate flooding and erosion from stormwater runoff. 3, regrade lower parking lot to control stormwater runoff in conjunction with the drainage system. And 4, construct 2 handicap parking spaces on the lower parking lot and provide ADA compliant asphalt walkways to the 3 ADA bleachers. John Cavanaro of Cavanaro Consulting is here to provide technical detail on these ADA projects and to answer any engineering questions you may have. The total cost for the ADA work at Barnes Complex is approximately $100,000, and we would be seeking 100% CPC funding for this project. We have discussed the procurement ramifications with Michelle Leary, and we believe we can break down the project and associated costs to comply with the town procurement requirements. The second project is the Deer Hill Elementary School softball field restoration project. This is a classic feel-good project where the local Little League organization steps in to help fix up and use an overgrown dormant ball field. It really is that straightforward. The softball program within CYBSA has grown steadily since 2015 and has reached a record enrollment of 105 players in grades K to 8. We currently have 1 playable softball field in Cohasset, Freedom Field on North Main Street. Grades K to 12 use this field for softball, and Freedom Field is also the home field for Cohasset High School varsity softball. We have exceeded the scheduled capacity of this field, and for the previous 2 years have been borrowing fields from other towns, thank you, Hingham, Norwalk, Canton, and more, so our girls can play softball. We are now seeking additional playing field space inside Cohasset and have identified the softball field at Deer Hill Elementary School as the leading candidate for restoration. The Deer Hill softball field was installed in 2003, 2004 during the major school district renovation project impacting the high school and Deer Hill Elementary. Deferred maintenance on the field has accumulated, and a large effort is now needed to bring this great softball field in a fantastic location back to playable condition. The total cost of the Deer Hill softball restoration project is $19,000. We would be seeking 50% CPC funding for this project. We can comply with the town procurement requirements for this project as well. The third major project is the Barnes Complex field improvements. In order to maintain our facilities at the Barnes Complex, there are several smaller non-routine maintenance improvements that need to be made. One, renovation of the Barnes field dugouts to meet safety standards. Two, restoration of the Barnes batting cage. Three, install safety fencing and netting at various places on all fields. Four, install batting cage base field. Five, repair perimeter fencing around all fields, including the gates, hardware, attachments, etc. Six, repair and paint the Barnes field storage sheds. Seven, restore warning tracks in Freedom and Chase fields. From this list, and perhaps other items unknown at this time that may manifest themselves later, we would like to be able to select those improvements which we feel are most urgent to accomplish and most beneficial to maintaining a safe and properly functioning Barnes Complex facility. We would cap the total aggregate cost of these projects not to exceed $25,000, and we would be seeking 50% CPC funding for these projects. We also can comply with the town procurement requirement for these projects. We have attached the quotes and engineering plan for the ADA compliance work and the quotes and visual illustrations for the Deer Hill softball restoration project. We are still gathering competitive quotes for the Barnes Complex facility improvements, but we have attached those that we have. In summary, these are our proposed improvements for 2021. And thank you for listening and your patience. And we would appreciate your funding these projects as requested. Respectfully, me.
Okay. Andrew, do you want to add anything there?
You talking about Andy Sims? Andy Sims?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You-
Thanks, Mark. Yes, just thank you so much for having us before your committee tonight. Much appreciated. Mark really covered it all right there. And, you know, I'm here as a proponent for the Deer Hill softball field restoration project. And I've been working closely with many key stakeholders across the town with quite a bit of community outreach in the school district and town offices to get that squared away. And we'd appreciate any help we can get on the funding.
Okay. Any members of the committee have some questions?
I have one.
Paul?
Go ahead, Susan.
I was just going to ask, it seemed that you were asking for 50% kick in towards the Deer Hill softball and the other improvements at the ball field Barnes. I was wondering why you're not able to contribute anything other than having to ask for 100% for the ADA compliance. Because that's $100 grand. That's just a big chunk.
Yes. Well, I can give you two answers to that, actually. The first one is that we had the original proposals that we had a few more things on them. Some of them were retroactive issues. And what we did was we dropped all of those and withdrew all of those requests and wanted to place them towards the ADA work that needs to be done. That's one reason. The second is that after reviewing the CPA projects database, I think there's plenty of precedent. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of ADA requests were receiving 100% CPA funds. So I thought we would be justified in doing that, plus the fact that we withdrew a number of projects that added up to a significant amount of money, actually, around $40,000. We thought maybe it would be justified to do.
Okay.
John Cavanero, will this bring the ball fields into complete compliance in your judgment?
Tom, in my judgment, but I think
Oh.
John commented on that a lot more better than I can.
Yeah, so it will address the non-compliance issues that were raised in the open space report for the snack shack facility. It will also bring the parking up to compliance for the total number of spaces that are at the facility. And it will also provide accessible paths, which are required to the new accessible bleachers as well.
Are there other issues that are not addressed? Other possible ADA compliance issues that are not addressed by this?
Not that I'm aware, no.
Okay.
And John, are these going to be ADA fed or mass regulations that they're going to be complying with?
So they'll comply with both AAB and ADA.
Paul Schubert.
Yeah, so a little bit of background, the fields up in the grade school in Deer Hill and Joseph Osgood, because they were not ADA compliant, they had to be shut down, which is a bit of a annoying thing for trying to, this is pre-COVID. And so the town is basically at risk for having these fields shut down if there's not good faith effort and ADA compliance, both at the federal and state level. I believe the ones up in the schools had ADA compliance at the federal level, were not at the state level. So they had to redesign and reconstruct them. So this is oftentimes 100% for CPC in various communities around the state where state and federal ADA requirements come into play, where the town is basically at risk for having ball fields or open space shut down if they're not compliant. That's all.
All right. Anyone else have a question?
Yeah, Russ, I would like to know, what are the alternative sources of funding that were on mute? How's that? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what are the alternative sources of funding that we're hearing about in the various projects? And why do they vary so much from project to project?
Is that to me?
Anybody?
Yeah. Randy.
I think
Yeah,
I explained the approach to the ADA, and the other two are, I think, sort of the normal request at 50%.
Where does this come from? The alternative financing is supplied by what organizations?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, in that group of things that we just are requesting, that would require CYBSA to have $22,000, and we do have that in our capital reserve fund.
Okay. So it's town funding.
We're looking for funding from CPC, and we're going to our organization, the Cohasset Youth Baseball and Softball Association, in our reserve fund has enough money to cover our portion of that.
Okay. And the source of that fund is what? I'm not familiar with how these sports organizations fund themselves in Cohasset. Maybe you could just explain briefly how that happens.
Okay, well, we have we charge fees for the players, from the players and whatnot. So we have registration fees and we have sponsors. That's how we generate our operational funds. And our operational funds kind of just barely cover the operational costs, but hopefully we make a little bit of money that we save up over time, which goes into our capital reserve fund. And then periodically we have a fundraiser. We had a fundraiser a year and a half ago, through which we did raise a good amount of money, and that's what we have in our capital reserve fund. So we actually raised more money than we thought in that fundraiser, so that'll take us a little ways, I think, to funding some of these projects. But that's, we don't make a lot of money, believe me. It's a small, we make operationally, if we
Is there I mean, there's a big ask for $100,000. I believe it's 100. Is there any reason why we could not have another fundraiser to try and raise some of that?
well, fundraisers are funny things. If you have them every year, you don't make any money with them. But I suppose we could try to make more money. But I think this ADA is one of those things that is pretty well recognized because it's mandated by by the federal government and the state government. It's almost universally funded 100% by CPC when it's requested. Having looked at the CPA database, I think there's an awful lot of precedent there.
Okay.
Anyone else? Tom Callahan?
Go ahead, Susan.
No, go on, Tom.
Okay.
I've already said something.
These fields aren't that old. How did we get out of ADA compliance?
I think ADA law has changed over time. You didn't used to have handicap bleachers. You didn't have to have ramps to restrooms and things like that. But over the last several years, the laws have changed. But I think I'd rather have John talk about that because I'm not an expert. If John's still there.
Yeah, I'm still here. I can't speak honestly as to when these were originally permitted, but I think Mark is alluding to the fact that in the past, some of these facilities go back beyond 20 years. Certain things were exempt in the past or had a time span when ADA went into effect that you had a certain window to bring your facilities into compliance, and the time has basically come to, we've reached that milestone to bring things up to speed.
My other question is, since these are town properties, what's the role of DPW in the town maintaining these properties? It seems a lot of this is deferred maintenance or non-maintenance. And what's the relationship between the town and the baseball association on taking care of these places, and what guarantee if we rehab these things that they're going to be maintained going forward, so that we're not doing this every 10, 15 years? I'm troubled by this and the request about the basketball courts, about why this kind of maintenance isn't in the regular town budget under the recreation department. And
well,
your organization doesn't have a lot of money. Are we deferring? Are we subbing out maintenance to you when we should be doing it? And I just want to know what the whole relationship is.
We move upstairs. I can move upstairs.
You want me to take a shot at that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the history with the Little League field, we think we have a lease on the field and the town owns the property, and the town does general maintenance, the kind of maintenance, they mow the lawns and that kind of thing and do some tree work and whatnot. And in general, the Little League takes care of the improvements. And it just requires you have to do general maintenance on properties all the time, just the way it is.
Is it a lease requirement that you do this?
Excuse me?
Is it a lease requirement under the lease that you do?
I think I'm not sure about that because we're not sure about the terms of the lease, but I will say that historically the Little League has pretty much done has paid for most of the improvements and done the work for the upkeep. And the town has, they mow the lawn and they do other things. But most of the work we're talking about, this ADA is not deferred maintenance. It's something new, something that had to be, it was an increased mandate basically to change the property from how it was originally built in order to accommodate new laws. The other stuff that we're talking about is kind of normal stuff that you have to do all the time. But it costs money. We raise some money. We have enough you know, to take care of some of the things, but, you know, helpful to get some help.
I have no problem with the ADA compliance. I have no problem paying for the new softball field to be rehab. I have a problem that if we have a lease and the tenant's responsible for all this other maintenance, that the landlord ends up paying for it. That I have a problem with, but, you know, we're not talking huge dollars here either. But I think the recreation department needs to, you know, be realistic with its budget and what it needs to maintain these athletic facilities. But that's a different question for a different group of people to discuss.
Oh,
Let me just comment. So the lease we have been working on to find the exact wording of the original lease, it goes back pretty far. So a lot of the fine details of the lease, such as who's responsible for the general maintenance upkeep, which is typically the town mowing lawns, making sure that the gravel is flattened out in the driveway, in the parking lot. A lot of the true field maintenance does defer to the basically CYBSA, but that's when the lease was signed. I don't even believe they were even in existence, and it's been brought forward through the CYBSA much more recently. So the town is working on the exact fine details of that lease.
Well, when you find it, Paul, let me know, would you?
We're looking for it.
It's back in 1952, probably.
It's yeah, it's the mid 60s.
Hey, Mark, how are you? It's Vince Thornton. I'm part of the CYBSA board. Thank you for allowing me to jump in here. I've been listening in, and I might be able to add some value on what we do from a maintenance standpoint, if that would help.
Vince?
Yes, Russ, how are you?
Good, how you doing? Can you also, for the record, state your address, please?
Sure, Vince Thornton, 109 Nichols Road, here in Cohasset.
Great, thanks.
So I've been a member of the CYBSA board for, I think, 4 years now. Probably been a coach, an advocate for CYBSA for over 8 years. You know, I've experienced the ups and downs of the field status, you know, from the points of, you know, high lips and low curves, where it's become a safety issue. And we have developed a plan within the board to maintain a very safe field structure that's just within the fields themselves. I've been working very closely with Mark and other board members to develop ADA appropriate bleachers for appropriate spectatorship of the field. You know, in years past, the ball field never had spectator bleachers in certain regards. Many fields did not have bleachers at all. And over the years, we've added those bleachers. And 3 years ago, we started to include the ADA approved bleachers. To be honest, they are hard to get to for those that have disabilities getting to the bleachers. So we've worked very closely hand in glove with John Cavanaro to analyze the fields, the grades of the fields, and looking to incorporate appropriate ADA aspects. You know, I think we've had a couple questions about where funding comes from. Tom, funding comes from both the fees that we have for our participants to play, but as Mark alluded to, we did a very big fundraising 2 years ago, which we have not done in many years, and that was to support many facets of the organization, not only ADA, but also improvements to the field, scoreboards, things of that nature, which we're not, you know, talking about right now. But you know, I just wanted to just jump in here to talk about some of the facets that Mark may not know about how we've made improvements to the field to make them accessible, and I'll stop there.
Anyone else from CPC with a question or a comment? Okay. I'm kind of
Russ?
curious about a lot of the ADA improvements that were recently made were funded by CPC. You're saying, both Mark and Vince, that there's batting cages, scoreboards, and things like that that aren't on the request now, which makes me wonder, are they going to be on a list or request next year? And if they are, what type of fundraising do you think you're going to be able to do?
Well, some of those aspects were part of the fundraising that we did a year and a half ago. You know, the scoreboards, the batting cage, that was part of the fundraising that we did. That was the big push back then. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. You know, what we're looking for support here is the infrastructure of the ADA aspect.
I understand that, but in the initial discussions that I had, there were scoreboards and other things that have since been removed to concentrate more on ADA. Those needs haven't gone away. And what I'm wondering is a year from now, are we going to be talking about a lot of those improvements that we're just kicking the can down the road right now?
Well, let me try to, like I had written to you earlier. I think I'm sure we'll be coming back to CPC in the future for funding requests. But I didn't want to pile on in this year because of all of the other requests that you're getting from other areas. What I think is a fair thing is to try to cap whatever requests we have at a certain dollar amount for any year. I mean, to me, unless it's some kind of unusual thing, and that just seems to me to be a reasonable way to look at funding for field improvements, because they're going to be field improvements all the time.
Right, but the CPC shouldn't be part of your funding plans consistently year after year after year. We've had this same issue with the Historical Society. We've been pumping a lot of money into the recreation, and we're not seeing anything coming our way in the way of a split. You know, these different improvements, like Tom was pointing out, Tom Callahan, you know, we need to see that you're going to be able to maintain these properties without having to come to CPC every time you're getting ready to do improvements.
Well, Russ, I don't think, no, we're not asking for annual improvements. That's part of what CYBSA is structured for. We're looking for ADA improvements, which is a one-time fix unless ADA changes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark and John. But we're looking for the infrastructure to put the ADA structure in place. And CYBSA is here to maintain the fields from an annual basis, which we have done from years to years in the past.
So then the additional batting cages and things like that, we shouldn't expect to see next year or the year after?
Absolutely. You know, we're not looking to add batting cages. You know, we have 3 fields up on the Barnes complex.
But initial discussions, there were more facets to it than are currently existing. And what I'm trying to avoid is a situation where we take a few things off the table, get this amount passed, and I agree, I think the ADA is the utmost importance. We're not going to get fined because we don't have batting cages. We are going to get fined if we don't have ADA compliance.
Sure. And I don't want to derail from Mark's presentation. I'm just here to help facilitate some extra comments, so I'm going to defer to Mark.
So, Russ, what do you feel that the CYBSA shouldn't be coming back at all for any future projects?
I'm not saying that at all, Mark. What I'm
Okay.
saying is it
You know,
shouldn't be getting built in as part of your budgeting.
okay, no, okay, I agree with that. And which is why, you know, the way I'm looking at this is that, you know, we probably are going to have to come up with a certain amount of money every year to maintain the facilities. I think that's kind of a basic budgeting approach. And it would be helpful to get some CPC funds if we could. If it's not something that the town feels or you guys feel is reasonable, then we'll have to try to fund what we can, you know, through our own, with our own wherewithal.
We can't speak on behalf of future boards.
Mhm.
We can, I think, concern ourselves with the ability, how much money you're going to need to maintain those properties, and maybe do improvements, and what kind of funds you can raise.
Mark, one of the issues that we have frequently before the CPC is the distinction between what is maintenance and ongoing maintenance and what are capital projects.
Right.
And it's the clearer and sharper those distinctions are, I think the easier it is for us to come to grips with exactly where these things fit, because we don't do maintenance. And so, and I recognize sometimes the distinction between maintenance and capital projects is very fuzzy, but the sharper we can make those distinctions, the more helpful it is.
I agree with you, Tom. It is fuzzy, particularly when you're talking about, we try to do as much as we can with our own volunteers, just to be honest with you, as you probably know. And there are certain things that we can't do because it requires expertise from professionals. And if those kinds of projects, you know, get up in the $10,000 range in cost, and you have to hire an outside company to do it, I look at those as an improvement rather than a maintenance item. If you have to make some kind of distinction. So I'm with you on that. And we try to, I mean, routine maintenance type things we try to do as much as we can with our own people, buy materials and have our own laborers, you know, based on volunteers within the CYBSA community, do as much as we can. But, you know, we need to have other things done. We have the more infrastructure we have at Barnes Complex, the more maintenance has to be done to it. And we can establish some kind of when you, from an accounting point of view, when you determine what's a maintenance item and what's an improvement from a capital point of view, you have to establish a value, and you have to establish whether you have basically outside companies doing it. So it's a fuzzy line, but you know, something in the vicinity of 10,000 in that area, I might personally think it rises to the level of a capital improvement. I think we can make that case. And that's kind of what we're doing with these improvements that you see listed.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off the maintenance aspect for Mr. Rudin and Mr. Callahan, you know, the town maintains the grass cutting. They come in on a weekly basis to cut the grass. And that's essentially to the extent that they maintain the fields. CYBSA handles all, True Green to support the grass growing. We handle all the edging. You know, the town has admitted to us that they can't handle the edging on the fencing. So we get volunteers that come in and edge the fencing and maintain the growth on the fencing side. We do have a well that supports our irrigation, thankfully, to maintain the green grass during the summer months. But it's the CYBSA team, the board and volunteers that maintain the field and the edging and the playing surfaces. But the town to their benefit, to our benefit, cuts our grass. So.
Russ?
Russ?
Susan?
Yes, hi. I just wanted to speak to the value of addressing the Deer Hill School softball field. From a Title IX standpoint, I think it's important that girls' sports be as equally addressed and expended for. And having had two daughters, both of whom actually played softball, softball's kind of near and dear. Our daughter, when she was in, I think it was 4th grade, her first at bat got a homer. So she was pretty excited in her softball team. So it's encouraging to see that softball numbers are increasing, and due to that, it seems, if I'm reading this correctly, that is what's somewhat pushing the need for addressing the restoration of the Deer Hill field. So I would endorse, your efforts to do that. And, to that end, I would support, funding for that. It does trouble me that there are more amounts of money that are expended towards boys' sports. And so I just want to leave it at that.
Okay. And some of this, there's a request in here, Tom Callahan.
Yeah, I don't want anything that I'm saying to be interpreted as some criticism of the CYSBA. I appreciate everything you're doing here and what you do. My concern is the way I read the Community Preservation Act. We just talked about the fine line between regular maintenance and something that's extraordinary. I think this act is there for, and the money is there for things that are extraordinary and not routine. And as a lawyer, if there's a lease out there and the lease divides responsibilities, I think that lease should be adhered to, but none of us know what the lease says sitting here tonight. And going back to my earlier, Russ, I don't know how you're going to do a vote on this, but I would vote 100% for the ADA stuff because the town has a responsibility there. I'd do 100% on the Deer Hill, but I would vote no on the third one, on the bonds.
That could be handled through a motion.
Well, I don't know if anybody's ready for that, but
No.
I don't, the Deer Hill one is an improvement. It is an addition. That is something the CPA is designed for. The ADA is the town's responsibility, not the baseball association's responsibility. And, but too many of the other things just seem to me to be deferred routine maintenance. And until I see the lease terms, I can't allocate who should be responsible for that right now. I'm not sure that the taxpayer should be responsible for that. I may be convinced otherwise a week from now if I see the lease.
Susie Wadsworth, sorry.
Oh, good. I agree with Tom. That lease should be looked at and needs to be brought up to date so we all understand whose responsibility it is to maintain the fields and to provide for the capital improvements. That troubles me to have it so vague between the town and the Little League. The second thing is the proposed bids on the $100,000 Barnes fields. Those are dated over a year ago. I'd like to see more current estimates on the costs. And one of them, I think it's the Aria Brothers one, refers to ADA. And I'd very much like to see the Mass Disability Act specifically referenced because of the trouble we ran into a couple of years ago with the playground. And I had another, I'm troubled with the Deer Hill proposal, not that it's a lot of money, but why hasn't either the school department or recreation maintained that? The fact that it's overgrown, and as Susan Sardina points out, that's a field whose sport is attractive primarily to girls. So I'm very troubled that that's been left to go into disrepair to that extent. And that's it.
Okay. And, you were saying how adding infrastructure comes with more expenses. How many batting cages are in that complex now?
We have two. We have one at Barnes and one at Freedom. One at the softball field and one at the baseball field, Barnes Field.
Is there an absolute need for a third, or is this a want?
Well,
it seems to me, because now what happens if somebody, a bunch of kids want to do a pickup game, can they play on those fields?
well, there's nothing stopping them from playing.
Okay. 'Cause, I mean, where they seem to be exclusively the use for the CYBSA, um,
Well,
things like that should be on CYSA, not on CPC. If we're going to be paying for that, we're going to be paying for the maintenance of them in another couple of years. I think that's a concern.
well, the batting cage that we were proposing for Chase Field, there's having a batting cage at the field in which the kids are playing is a good idea, but particularly there because you have the baseball boys from Chase and the softball girls from Freedom sharing a batting cage, which sometimes can get a little bit difficult. Girls prefer to have their own batting cage for sure, and it can become a safety issue with the kids climbing over the fence and Chase to get to the Freedom Field and whatnot. It would just, if we could afford it and if it made sense, it would be a good idea to have one at Chase. As far as the use of
How much would something like that run, a batting cage? With all
depends. I originally sent that over to you. If you buy a smaller version of what's up at Milliken, for instance, which is a Beacon Athletic batting cage. I think I have the quote in there. You're talking somewhere around $25,000. If you're trying to do something that's less expensive, that can be done. You still have to probably pay about $6,000 to put a base, a stone dust base there, and then after that, it's a matter of what you can get and how much it costs to install it. So you could do it for much less. But let me just go back to you said who uses the field. I mean, basically the fields are occupied by, the Little League teams all the time. Every night there are games there.
Well, not all the time. It's not in the fall. It's not in the
No.
winter. There are multiple uses beyond just the baseball.
Right. And during the day, in the spring, it's in summer, it's also, the fields are there and kids are in school and whatever. So, but, there are, historically, the CYBSA has really maintained the property. I think done a pretty good job with the kind of money we have because it's all volunteers that are doing it. And as far as I did want to point out something, and Tom had mentioned something about the lease, but I would say, the lease is important to understand where the responsibilities for maintenance lie. But if you look at the CPA projects database and see what other towns, CPCs and other towns have given money to, you'll see that there are many, many, many examples of funding for private little leagues and that type of thing. And a lot of it's 100%. And there's quite a variation in how different towns approach this. So I'm not a lawyer like Tom, but I can just tell you that if you just, take a look at the actual facts in the CPA projects database, you can see how the money is being allocated around the state. So,
honestly, Mark, I'm never swayed by the argument that other towns are doing it.
Okay, well, but I think they're doing it by law. So that was the point.
All right. So maybe let's jump back to who's going to be using the batting cage on Chase. So, Mark, you made some great points. about, who's going to be using the field. Russ, let me circle back to your comment about who's going to be using the Chase batting cage. So there are 3 fields up on the Barnes complex. There's the primary Barnes field up top, which has the Barnes batting cage in the left field, which is very associated with the Barnes field. You have the batting cage just adjacent to the field on Freedom on third base. And currently what we're asking to do is include a new batting cage on the third baseline of Chase Field. Now, having coached many a child and, with other coaches, if you are trying to work with your other coaches and trying to manipulate or, maneuver kids through drills, sending them through another field, jumping over fences, climbing over issues, getting to another batting cage where you can't see them relatively close. That's the reason why we're asking for the new batting cage next to Chase, to alleviate climbing over fields, and also the fact that we're not trying to share batting cages between 2 fields. So Susan brought up Title IX issues. I'm not trying to go there at this point, but we have a softball field and a softball batting cage. We have a baseball field right next to it with no batting cage. So if we're trying to push players into a batting cage that, other players are using, I'll let you answer that question there. We're just trying to add a batting cage that can facilitate better coaching, better player development, and better skills for the kids. So that's why we're asking for the new batting cage along the Chase Field complex. There's not a lot of area for it. It's a very tight arena to put that in, but I think we've addressed that issue with the town already, with Jeff Summers, and we can move forward with that fairly inexpensively.
I'm still, I agree with you. It's nice to have these things. Other towns may have them. What I guess I'm wondering is why is it CPC that is the solution? The town should be getting involved a bit, or recreation, but it's always on CPC. We've spent a ton of money this year on recreation related items.
And we understand that, and then that's part of, we're asking for your support.
Can I finish what I'm saying?
And that's why we're putting over 50% into the aspect of it, right, Mark? I'm sorry if I'm jumping over. Yep. I'm passionate about this. If you can't tell, I apologize.
I can tell. I can tell. I also know that we're going to have big demands on this committee when town hall finally comes through, and we have to look at the money that we're spending out and try to conserve where we can. Some of these things are wants.
And we're willing to work with you hand in glove with it.
Excuse me, Vince, can I finish?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. And I think we need, as a committee, to see what other sources may also be available, and a better idea of what kind of fundraising you're capable of. Anyone else from the committee have a question? No?
Paul,
Yeah, I have one, just a comment. The field up at the Deer Hill, that there's no lease on that. That's school property, and the maintenance of that, it basically you need to almost returf it almost every year, because a lot of that is up on it's on ledge, and you really need almost to reseed it and to re-soil it, because it's a very difficult place to keep maintenance up. So it only took a few years for it to decline to where it's unusable. Along that time was when they redid the playgrounds as well, which may have interrupted the maintenance on that. That I'm not sure, but that is one thing which I think is a nice area. It's a flat open field, which is very much usable once it's once you do the capital investment. That's all.
Okay. For some reason, I've lost my screen. I don't know how to rejoin. I can hear you all, but I can't see. So are there any other questions from anyone? Should we do it as a roll call?
Do we have a motion?
If somebody wants to make a motion, sure, we can entertain a motion. If everyone has asked the questions they'd like to. Tom Callahan, are you all set?
I'll make a motion that I made before if you want.
Yeah, well, I just want to check this individually, make sure everybody's ready to go.
No, I'm ready to go.
Okay, Tom Reardon, are you ready to go, or do you have any other questions?
Nope, I'm fine.
Susie Wadsworth, any other questions?
No, I have no other questions.
Okay, Susan Sardina. Any
No,
questions?
just wondering, are we voting these individually? 1, 2, and 3?
Depends on the motion.
Depends,
Okay.
yeah. Depends on the motion.
That's what I would suggest myself, I guess.
Okay. Who have I missed? Mike Dickey.
I'm good, thanks.
And
Okay.
Eric.
Eric.
I'm satisfied.
Okay. And Eric, just when you have a chance, can you figure out why I have lost the visual on this?
I'll come down and have a look, all right? But hey,
Okay. All right.
you're probably, you're
Does anyone want to make a motion? Tom?
I'll make a motion, we 100% fund item 1, the ADA work.
I'll second that.
Is there a cost to it? You don't have to put a cost to it.
$100,000. That's
Okay. Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, say aye. This is a roll call vote.
Aye, Paul Schubert.
Tom Reardon, aye.
Susan
Eric
Sardina.
Eisner, aye.
Susan Sardina?
Susan Sardina, aye.
I'd suggest we do that in alphabetical order to make it simple.
Susie Wadsworth?
Aye. Susie Wadsworth.
Michael?
Michael Dickey, aye.
Have I missed anyone? I think I got everybody. Russ Panetti, aye. Now that's on part 1. Do you want to make separate motions for the other two? Anyone want to start?
I'll move we finance item 2, which I understand is $19,000, 100%.
That's for the softball field.
Yeah, that's for the softball.
I'll second that.
I thought they were
I
looking
have
for.
a question then before we get going. Excuse me. Is the 19,000 the 50% cost, or is this 50% of $19,000, Mark? Mark, is Mark still with us?
I can see it. I can see you.
I think the total cost of the project is 19,000.
Yeah, so Tom Callahan, you're only asking for 50%.
Yeah, I know, but I'm making a motion to pay 100%.
Oh, that we pay 100% of that? Okay.
I'm making a motion for that. You can,
Okay.
you know, you can amend it to 50 if you want, but I'm making a motion for 100.
Come back in, Russ, okay?
I'll second that.
We're working on the screen here.
We're getting there.
Can we just, can we vote?
So we have a motion on the floor. We have a second on the floor. I'd ask for a vote.
Okay. Alphabetically, Callahan, you're up.
I'm first, okay, I vote aye.
Mike Dickey,
Michael Dickey, nay.
Eric Eisenhower, no? No, no word.
He's an
Susan
abstainer.
Sardina, aye. Paul
Paul
Schubert,
Schubert, aye.
Okay.
Wadsworth,
Tom Reardon, I heard.
Aye.
Okay. Susie Wadsworth,
Nay, Susie Wadsworth.
Russell Panetti, aye.
Tom, this idea of, Tom Callan,
Yo,
this idea of going alphabetically doesn't work if you don't know the alphabet.
On one of my other boards, that's the chair's job to know. Anyway,
Okay, now, there's the third part. That count.
well, my last motion is to not fund anything in item number 3.
Second?
That
So
won't get
that's a negative motion.
That's a negative motion. Sorry.
well, I didn't hear what carried for 2, and there's such an echo, I don't know.
Can people just put, if you're, just mute everything unless you're speaking, please?
So item 2 carried, is that correct? Russ? Does anybody know?
I think there was there
I think
only,
there were 2 nays,
yeah. So it carried.
so it carried,
The,
and that was for
the first
19,000.
motion did carry on a vote of, I believe, 5-2 positive.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay, thank you.
The first motion was on the ADA and that was unanimous, wasn't it?
Correct, that's correct.
And then the second was a 5-2.
Sorry, the second.
Which carried, okay.
And that was $19,000, okay.
Just from the motion point of view, a negative motion is a little more difficult to enter when it comes to
Someone else-
parliamentary motions. I'd recommend that the motion be a positive motion and then we vote against it or for it.
Somebody else make it.
You could always approve $1,000, which is a token amount, if that puts it positive.
I'm sorry, I guess, I don't think it applies for CPC funding at this point in time, so I don't want to make the motion in the affirmative. So somebody else do it and I'll just vote no.
I would make a motion that we approve, it's half of the 25,000, right, Mark? So it's 12,000?
that's right, 1,500, right.
So that we approve 12,500 for improvements at Barnes.
Second.
Should we do a roll call, Paul?
There's a motion on the floor. There is a second. If we can do a roll call, can we do
Yeah.
that?
Paul?
Tom
How do you vote?
Callahan,
No,
Mike Dickey,
Mike Dickey, no.
Eric,
Eric Eisenhower, yes.
Tom Reardon,
Yes.
Susan Sardina,
Susan Sardina, no. Paul, you're muted.
Muted, Paul.
sorry, Russ, you're last.
I haven't voted.
Susie Wadsworth,
Susie Wadsworth, no.
Russ is chair. You got the last vote.
No, but I don't think I'm being heard.
Russ, I didn't hear your vote.
For some reason, I lost my microphone.
Russ, you're piggybacking off of Eric, so if you can get closer to Eric, you could probably respond more clearly.
Russ, well, how do you want to vote, Russ?
I would vote no.
Russ votes no.
Okay, can somebody do the math?
I think we had 5 no's and 2 yeses. Does that sound right?
That's what I counted as well.
Okay.
So the motion does
sounds-
not pass.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Eric, I'm not on video or audio again.
You're on audio.
Okay, I will come down and try and do something I was not born to be able to do. Okay, hold on.
Oh, wait a minute. Here we go.
Russ is back on audio.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's asking me to start my video, so let's see. There we
you go.
go.
Hey, you're back.
Oh, these Zoom meetings are great, aren't they? Okay, moving on. We
Thank you,
have,
guys.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for the consideration.
Thank you,
folks.
Mark.
Appreciate it.
we have the Cohasset Conservation Trust, 2 pieces of land acquisition. Jeff Wall, I believe, is calling in or called in. Jeff? No. Debbie Shad by chance? No. Oh. How do you want to handle this? We, has everybody reviewed their application?
Yes.
Yes.
Russ, Eric here. I reviewed the application as best I can. I would not mind having a presentation, having a screen
Up
share
there's
with
Jeff.
them. Hello, Russ?
Yes.
I would like to have a screen share and have them walk us through the maps, so explaining where it is and
Yep.
where the wetlands are and what they're trying to do, if we could.
Okay, Jeff Wall has joined us.
We can do that. Let me see if I can do a screen share. And also Katie Holden is with us. She's another director. Could you put her as a participant? She might be able to add some information that I don't have.
What is her name? Katie Holden.
Katie Holden, yep.
I just made you co-host, so you should have screen sharing capabilities.
All right. I'll be right with you. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's our application. We just recently purchased some property on Forest Avenue. Before I get into that, when I introduce myself and Katie Holden and Debbie Shad. Cohasset Conservation Trust, for you people that are relatively new, has been around since about 1967. And we get involved in purchasing and maintaining open space properties. Bassing Beach in Situate is one of our properties, as is Great Brewster Woods behind Town Hall. We currently own 27 properties, which total 181 acres and 3 conservation restrictions protecting 80 acres for a total of 261 acres that we helped to protect.
That's great.
The property on Forest Avenue. This is a plot plan that was prepared. Forest Avenue is on the right. North Main Street is at the bottom of the screen. It's off the screen, but it's at the bottom. And then Cedar Street going up to the landfill is the left bottom corner. So this is an irregular lot that we purchased. It just came on the market all of a sudden. It's a buildable lot. We closed on it December 31st of last year, the last day of the year. The frontage is on Forest Avenue. And I'm not sure if you can see the wetlands that are right here and actually go right across the property. There's a vernal pool right at the beginning of the property, which is a very interesting landmark. And then there's another wetland up at the top here. So we were interested in the property because it has great conservation value, great open space value, great value for passive recreation. And one of the other reasons that we like the property, here is a condensed view of things. The Forest Avenue property is here at the bottom of the screen. That's grayed in. We also own 34 acres we call Bread and Cheese Conservation Area. It's further down on Forest Avenue. But this big property to the left of Bread and Cheese and between Bread and Cheese and our property is town-owned property. So one of our long-term visions is to create a trail to connect both of these and also connect that with Wheelwright Park and Barnes Conservation Area across the street. And here's some views. This is Cedar Ledge Pond that you can see from the property that we acquired. This is some of the ledge outcroppings and just some of the local features of the area that we bought. It's bare woodland. There's nothing in it right now. So what we want to do, our project for this is we need to create a safe access from Forest Avenue down to the area where we can create some trails. Right now, the access is pretty rocky and pretty steep. So we need to create a stairway to get down there and a kiosk at the top of the property to advise everybody what's down there, what to look for, what the trails are. And then to traverse across the wetlands, create a couple of boardwalks. And when you do the boardwalks, we have to go before the Conservation Commission and get some engineering involvement in that. So that's about $5,000. Surveying work to identify the property boundaries. We will need to do some tree work there are some fallen trees in there that we need to cut up and make way for the trails. We need to get rid of some of the briars. And we put a small contingency in there for some things that we may have overlooked for a grand total of $70,000 to get this into good shape and make it useful for the people of Cohasset. We've also contacted Boy Scout Troop 28 to see about creating Eagle Scout projects. And we have Cohasset High School independent service projects for the National Honor Society students are involved in it right now. They're doing some research for us, doing some research on vernal pools, best way to construct boardwalks. So it's a fairly simple project. We need some help with the funding on it. Like I say, we've already purchased the property. At the last minute kind of a sale. The previous owner had a couple of offers on it, but he agreed to sell it to us. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Jeff, Eric Eisenhower, I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay. Out of curiosity, as a buildable lot, where is the viable entrance to the lot without going through the wetlands, which would always be questionable
There's a
as
driveway.
a buildable lot.
There's a driveway up here. And then there are access easements across the.
Okay, oh, I see. Okay, so all of that is part of the lot we're talking about?
The lot that we're talking about is, if you can see the dark line.
Okay, yeah,
And then these are the adjacent properties. They're all pork chop lots along Forest Ave.
okay. So if it was a buildable lot, they would enter from the area up above.
Correct.
If it was, yeah, okay, understood. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
And Jeff, just out of curiosity, this is Susan Sardina. Hi. It's always interesting to kind of get a sense when we're asked for money for different projects, to have a sense what we're putting in as compared to what the asker or as the recipient has put in. How much do you mind sharing how much you paid for the lot?
It was a bargain sale with the previous owner. And if you read in the, I know it was in the Globe, and I guess it was in the Mariner, that the sale price was $350,000.
Okay.
And then the owner made a contribution as part of the sale back to the trust.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Again, I can only see Tom or Jeff. So,
All right, I'll jump in if I can. I mean, I would generally be supportive of this, but in terms of priorities, this is already purchased. I don't think it has immediate high value as a trail system. And I think priority needs to be given to the other proposal that the trust has before us. That property is far more valuable. It has a built-in trail system. It connects a number of properties. It's much more, and I realize this is a small amount of money in comparison, but given all the demands on the money we seem to be facing this year, I'd rather defer this for another year and focus all of our resources on the other purchase that they want us to do. This is already purchased and safeguarded, so you know, in my view, the trails can wait.
Actually, there are no conservation restrictions on this property right now. So if we felt that we needed the money someplace else, we could sell it.
Well, you know, don't put a gun to my head over $70,000. I'm trying to help you buy a $450,000 piece of property. I just think that's where the priority of our money should go.
okay. Anyone else have any comments?
Paul Schubert here. So one of the things, looking at putting in that boardwalk, I know there's the Minuteman Trail, which runs, I think it's along Route 2. A lot of it is over wetlands, and some of it's cantilevered over. Some of it is put right into the marsh on the right-hand side of Route 2, going out from Concord to Lexington. And you may want to look into their methods of how they did that when you go before like the Conservation Commission to describe what you want to do. But I'm with Tom on this one. I think that, you know, potentially the money's maybe better well spent elsewhere in that purchase of a piece of property that, looking at this one, you could probably build on it, but it'd be a yeoman's work to get it done. That's all.
Okay. Susie Wadsworth, anything? Susie? Does anyone else on the board have any questions? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you, see you.
Okay.
Maybe Susie's on mute. Susie, are you muted?
Oh, Susan Sardina, anything on it anymore to add?
No, I think I get the gist of it. Thank you.
Okay. Mike Dickey.
No, sounds good to me.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion?
Russ?
Yes,
Would it be all right, since we're having two requests from them, can we hear the other request in full before we make motions on both of the two? Kind of the way we did with the Concord, the CYSBA? Would that be appropriate?
I think with their two separate properties, I would prefer doing two separate votes.
Well, two separate votes, but at least to hear both requests.
I don't understand what the value would be, honestly.
It's the same we just did with the baseball people. Just let us hear the whole package.
Well,
Yeah,
the
we hear the
baseball
request,
thing, Tom,
we
if
hear the
you-
request, their other request in full, and then we can understand and make a determination where,
If you want, the baseball fields were one application, this came in as two applications. I really don't care which way we do it. If you want to hear the second one and then do a vote, that's fine.
I think if you hear the other one, it may impact how you vote on this one as it is impacting me.
Tom, I'm saying, let's do it that way.
Let's do it.
Okay, Jeff,
Yes,
you want to make the other presentation?
okay. This one involves purchase of another buildable lot. Let me see if I can get this thing going. It's at 487 King Street. It's on the Lily Pond watershed. All right, how's that?
We're still looking at you, Jeff.
All right, wait a minute. Okay,
Okay.
now you got that?
Yeah, we have the application.
Okay. So let me get you, we're seeking $450,000 to purchase this lot. It's another lot that has legal frontage on King Street. It has access to an approved septic system, a four-bedroom septic system. It's adjacent to existing conservation area. It provides access to what are now inaccessible conservation land owned by us as well as the town. And it has some great natural features to it. So this is the lot. King Street is over here to the left. And it has 50 feet, a little bit over 50 feet of frontage and goes to the back. Now the land that it abuts, this stuff over on the bottom right portion of the screen, which says now formerly Harvey property at 455 King Street. Lou Harvey donated that to us at the end of the year, 7 acres of land. So that abuts this. There's a place called Andros Island over here, which we own. And the town also owns a portion of Andros Island that goes, whoops, up here. Now I have to get back. Sorry. And then there's Wheelwright Highlands, which is the land that we also own up here at the top right-hand portion of the screen. So this lot, except for the northern portion of the lot, is surrounded by conservation area. And this is what ties everything together. Without this lot, you cannot get from the Lou Harvey property onto Andros Island or onto the Wheelwright Highlands or any other portion of land that's owned by us or by the town. And here's a bigger map of things. The Solano property is right here. This is what we're looking at. The Lou Harvey property is here. Andros Island is here. Wheelwright Highlands is here. We also own a conservation area called the Churchill Conservation Area. And then the town of Cohasset owns some property over here. So this is really a great piece of property for us to get. It has a lot of great features. Let me show you some of the pictures of it. And people say, well, you're just looking at woods, but the point is, it's fantastic stuff. They're great stone walls. There are mature trees. The current owners have eliminated all of the invasive species that are in there. They've created their own walking trails, so no trails have to be built in this place. This is from Wheelwright Highlands looking down towards their property on the right and Andros Island on the left. And further that you can't see is Lily Pond. This is looking from the Solano property. This is the property that we're looking to buy now across the wetlands. And this is a watershed to Lily Pond to Andros Island over here at the top of the screen with some more great ledge outcroppings and wonderful views of the surrounding area. And this is some more great ledge that's in the area. And this is the view from the top of one of those ledges, and that's Lily Pond across here. And then you can even see the Cohasset Water Department at the opposite side of Lily Pond.
Okay.
So this is, although it's only about 2.33 acres, this is a wonderful piece of property. We think it's fantastic. It's a unique opportunity for us to purchase the land, to create access to other areas. A great place for hiking or for walking around. One of the things that we plan on doing, because we have this Blue Harvey property, there is access in here. There's an existing stone wall with an opening in it. And we plan to create parking spaces at the top of it for 3 or 4 cars. So people could, from any part of the town or any place, could park their cars here and walk through here to get to areas that were previously inaccessible. And that's why we think it's a great opportunity for us and for the town. So with that, we'll answer any questions you have.
Jeff, how would the public access this property?
The property that we're looking at has access here. You know, this is what gives it the buildable lot status, is at 50 feet frontage here. But what we're planning to do is create access from the Harvey property here in a parking lot so that they can walk, people can walk down through the Harvey property, past the ledges and stuff there, through the Solano property into, you know, other places, Andros Island and Wheelwright Highlands.
That's what I was specifically looking at, parking.
Yeah.
How many spots would there be?
Right now, we're talking about, you know, 3 or 4 spaces. Yeah, we're not really sure. We'll have to, generally our properties don't get a lot of traffic all at once. You know, it's not like World's End where you get dozens of cars and a lot of people. But so we figure if we start with 3 or 4 parking spaces, and we'll see how that works out.
Paul, do you have a question?
I do. So this, my understanding that the sewer runs up King Street, correct? So this is a sewer, potentially sewered property if this is left.
Sewer stops at just before Lou Harvey property. Although Lou Harvey property has an easement to Lily Pond Lane.
But the sewer comes up from Beechwood, I think. Is that correct? Or is it coming the other direction?
Comes the other direction.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Anyone else with a question? Tom Callahan?
This is a fantastic property to walk. The connection with all these other properties, I just think, it's unfortunate that it costs a lot, but that's what a buildable lot is going for. But this is like an invaluable opportunity, and I don't think we should pass this one up. There's so many connections that can be made here with other properties, and it is, I was remarking when I was out there that, we live in a coastal community and everybody thinks about the ocean, but this side of town, we have some great properties with completely different views than you see up the ocean's edge, and we should appreciate it and add to it as much as we can. And I think this would be a great purchase. Just wish it was cheaper, that's all. But
Okay. Eric, anything else?
Russ, we spend all of our time on the Conservation Commission dreaming of properties like this, because, the wetlands that we have and the beauty of the virgin forest we have here is just the kind of thing that Cohasset needs to protect, preserve, and maintain for the future. Yes, the price is a bit high, all right, but it certainly fits the portfolio of the Conservation Trust as it sees right now. And except for the money, I could see very little reason not to go ahead with it.
Okay. Susan Sardina?
No, I totally concur. I guess my only thought would be if it is very appealing to the public, if the 3 or 4 parking spaces, Jeff, that you might want to create over there on the Harvey property along King Street, that entrance is not adequate. If you find that there's, great demand, might you be able to add 1 or 2 spaces at that entrance there on the Salerno property as well? Or is that
Actually,
not?
we're not planning on doing very much of anything on this 50-foot strip to get in there. But the top of the Harvey property is fairly flat for quite a distance in. And we could add a couple more spaces there. And that has the benefit of only having 1 parking lot to walk.
That would be better. That would be preferable. I don't know the spaces well enough to know the areas, but
Right.
I love the idea of this, and I love having it already abutting already existing conservation land.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a great opportunity.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not just a little 2-acre plot of land. It makes the connection with a lot of conservation areas.
Yeah. Great project.
Okay.
Is there any opportunity, Jeff, for a partnership on funding?
Not at this point in time. One of the reasons is there are some grants available, but it takes a couple of months to get the grant in place. And I don't think they announce the grants until either the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
Jeff, if we turned it down, is the assumption that you at the CCT do not have the funds to go ahead with it independently? Is that the case?
We do not have the funds.
Okay.
We purchased the property on Forest Avenue. We have a very small budget. Excuse me.
Take your time.
Okay, sorry about that. We have a very limited budget.
Yeah, okay.
And Katie, do you want to step in about our budget? Or Debbie?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. our fundraising that we do usually covers, oh, there we go. Our fundraising that we do every year covers our annual expenses. And this is something that the CCT has been working on for years, this massive vision. And first it was Real Light Highlands. And then, we've been working with these property owners for years. And we're so excited when Lou Harvey just came up in December, and then this opportunity, the stars are all aligning for this high value Keystone property. But it does not match up with our funds right now at all. So, and so, yeah.
Okay.
Mike Dickey, anything?
No, not really, Russ. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. It really comes down to, whether there's enough pennies in the piggy bank,
Yeah. Tom Reardon.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So any more discussion, or we ready for a motion?
So quick question is, how much money is in the open space funding from the CPC bank at this point?
In open space, let me get that here. $121,734. So we'd have to take
So you have to transfer from
from
unrestricted.
unallocated. And unallocated is, where is it here?
We'd need about 330,000 from the unallocated. Is that right, Russ?
Yeah, we've got 2,000,008 in it.
Okay, so
But
there's enough.
We're going to be hitting that. We had the school track a couple weeks ago, 400,000, I think that was, as I recall. So we're going to be hitting that, and we have the 2 basketball courts tonight, which aren't major dollars. I mean, we do have the money for it. It's dependent, I would guess, how, again, with the 900-pound gorilla in the room being the town hall project, how we want to put money out for this.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that CPC has not funded any land purchase since 2014. And it was that time they put out $175,000 when we purchased the Ingram property on Mom and Todd Road.
Right.
So now it seems like a good time to buy some more property.
This is too unique an opportunity, and honestly, I do not, the town hall project needs to be funded by the town by some other means than the CPC. That is too big of a project, and that is a clear town, and I don't want, no disrespect, Russ, I don't want to hear it as an excuse not to make other worthwhile necessary purchases.
But for a point of clarification, the participation of CPC would be limited to the old part of town hall, because we can't do anything with the new part.
I don't care what it would be limited to. I think the town hall project is what, a $12 or $15 million project? That's something that's got to be funded a completely different way by borrowing and overrides and whatever else we need. I just don't want to hear that as an excuse not to do other things we should be doing.
I'm not using it as an excuse, Tom. I'm pointing it out.
All right, that's fine. I hear you, but an opportunity to purchase a piece of property like this doesn't come along every day.
You're preaching to the choir on this one.
It's also the case that, at least in the last iteration, when we were looking at town hall, we were thinking about bonding some of that and paying debt service through. So there are different ways of doing it without huge lump sum out of CPC.
Mm-hmm.
And still
Russ, I don't hear anybody criticizing this project. And I haven't heard anyone say we shouldn't go ahead with it. So can we talk about how we're going to do it? how much?
I think
and how they're
somebody
gonna make it work?
Somebody just makes a motion. They're asking for $450,000 to buy it.
I make a motion, we do this, 100 from the open space fund and 350 from the unallocated fund.
Second?
Second,
Okay, roll call, Tom Callahan,
Aye.
Paul Schubert,
Aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
aye for this great project.
Michael Dickey,
Aye.
Susan Sardina,
Absolutely aye.
Tom Reardon.
Aye.
Susie Wadsworth still with us or no? Okay, Russ Panetti, aye.
Good.
Unanimous.
Okay,
Great.
thank you, Jeff.
Well, he's still got the other
What we
project.
have, yeah, that's right, we got the other. How do you want to handle the other one?
I don't want to make a negative motion. So,
Then make a positive motion.
Yeah, do a positive again, I guess.
Well, one thought, we only gave 100 out of the 120,000 in the open space. I don't know if it does you any good if we gave you 20,000 towards the property on Forest.
I mean, that would be a start, and we could come back at a later time to finish the project up.
How does the committee feel about that?
Tom Callahan, I know how you feel.
I know, yeah, I just don't, I'm sorry, I just don't, come to my work on the open spaces and introduce me to all the trails in town and just, so I have a new appreciation for them, and I just don't see this as the highest of priorities. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Paul, do you have anything on?
I mean, one option, we can defer this to the next round of funding. And the place has been purchased already, so there's no, underlying time element that is necessary right now, like there is for the purchase of that piece of property, which could very well go to the open market and be sold. This would be something we could defer a motion on it until, another 6 months go by and say, you know what, in 6 months, when we look at it again, look at the funding, see what we have in the bank, see what comes in from the state, and consider it. That's my thought.
Is that a motion you'd like to make?
I'd make a motion that we defer the decision on this for 6 months.
Okay, a second.
Okay,
All in favor, roll call vote, please.
I'm Callahan, aye.
Susan
Eric?
Sardina, aye.
Eric?
I abstain.
Okay, Paul? I read your lips. I couldn't hear it, but I guess you said aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Okay, Susie Wadsworth,
Susie Wadsworth, aye.
Tom Reardon,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye as well.
Me too. I'll vote aye, Russ.
Vicky, yes. Okay, God, I hate these Zoom meetings.
Does Susie want to be recorded on the other one now that she's here?
I'm sorry?
Does Susie want to be recorded on the other one we just voted on since she missed the vote?
On the land on King Street, she was not able to be present.
Yeah, Susie, do you want to vote on the other?
Yes, I vote aye.
Okay. All right, so this one passes.
Excellent. That's very good. Thank you. We'll see you in 6 months.
Yep, so it gives you options to reconsider what we have down the road.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Debbie. Katie.
Okay, we've got two more that are gonna have, well, I mean, the recreation we've discussed before. 9 o'clock. I don't know about the rest of you. I've yet to eat all day. And if we could, I'd like to postpone the basketball courts to our next meeting, which I would like to do within 2 weeks, if not sooner. And look at the second congregation presentation, if anyone has a problem with that.
Russ, 2 weeks makes it the night after Easter. I will be out of town.
Okay. Do you want to meet next week?
That's fine if you want.
That's fine by me.
Yeah, that's good for me.
Fine by me.
On by
Let's
me
go.
too.
But
Let's make it.
Do you want to then postpone the basketball until 1 week? Is anyone from rec on or in the waiting room? I don't think so. So we don't really have anyone to present it. You okay, Eric?
I'm alive. I'm a few floors away from you.
Ah, okay.
So
Well,
then I make a motion that we delay the discussion of the Cohasset Recreation Department basketball courts, Beechwood and Sawyer Street until the following meeting.
okay, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Tom
Paul Schubert,
Callahan.
aye.
Paul Schubert, aye. Tom Callahan.
Aye.
Susan Sardina.
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Eric, you said aye already.
Yep, aye. Yep.
Tom Reardon, aye.
And Susan Wadsworth.
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well. All right. On to the next, which is a presentation from Second Congregational Church. They're looking to do some improvements to the facade or preservation to the facade of the building, which if anyone's been in there, it really does need some work to be done on it. I'm trying to reach the pastor to see if she's ready to go here. Bear with me a second.
I've been added to the room and yes, I am.
Okay. Karen is the pastor at Second Congregation, and they put together a pretty good proposal. Did a lot of research, so go to it, Karen.
I believe Phil Lear is also in the gallery. He was going to join me for this. And Justine, may I share my screen?
I just made you co-host, so you should have the ability now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello, Phil.
Did we get Phil? There he is. Hi. Oh.
What was that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I will share my.
Did. Karen, if you could state your name and address.
Certainly. It's Karen Bailey Francois. I'm at 22 Redgate Lane.
Okay, and while we're at it, we don't want Phil left out. So Phil, Phil, could you state your name and address?
Oh dear, you have helium microphone.
Yeah, has somebody been inhaling helium? I think it's Phil. Okay.
Phil lives on North Main Street.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Karen.
Oh dear. Thank you, Russ, and to the committee for hearing this presentation. This is actually the application that we put in. I tried to, and now that it's gotten to be so late in the evening, I think that it's probably a good idea. I tried to just make it a little bit more digestible by presenting it in PowerPoint form. Our application is for the restoration of the historic facade, windows and bell tower facing Cohasset Common at 43 Highland Avenue. Our common is beautiful space, and it is the last undivided common land in Massachusetts that dates back to the colonial era. The master plan for the town in the historic and cultural resources component talks extensively about the contributions of not only the properties around the common, but also the ways that the churches have participated in that. And that's the ground for coming before you with this request for historic preservation monies. The space that we are looking at is this front visible area from the common. We're seeking CPA matching funds to responsibly address age and element related damage to features of a historically significant Cohasset building that is widely used both for and by the community within a recognized historic district. We seek to restore both the beauty and the safety while preserving the character and functionality of this historic community space, a building that is widely used during non-COVID times for a variety of purposes in support of Cohasset programs and groups. You'll see here ASP at one of their several annual car washes. We're visible from everywhere on the common, and it is a common that I think as a community we are trying to make sure is maintained in the way that serves this community. Our project is solely dependent on funding, and so appropriate permits and approvals will be sought in a timely fashion in keeping with TAUD guidelines and the project schedule should we be awarded this grant. A multifaceted restoration project of this type will require particular sets of expertise. SCC will invite proposals from appropriate professionals in order to find the best combination of experience, capacity, approach, availability, past performance, and pricing for this project, or as need be, for its components. The project cost is estimated based on earlier assessments of the work needed, benchmarked by comparing similar projects or parts of projects recently funded by CPA grants. There have actually been quite a few of them, so to be able to look at comparable numbers was helpful. A detailed scope of work with related costs will be developed once funding is secured and the contractors are selected. Our funding request is for $50,000, backed by $50,000 in matching monies provided by SCC from our reserves, and it equals 10% of the church's reserve funds. That latter amount, $50,000 from us, was approved at SCC's annual meeting on February 7th of this year. We come to the CPC very respectfully and also mindful that in contrast to other applications that are brought before you, there have been issues raised about whether the use of public monies for churches is appropriate. And we've done a fair amount of research to go and see what the precedent might be. I heard you very clearly earlier state that what other towns do is not indicative of what Cohasset should be expected to do. The point that I seek to make here is that there have been decisions made, legal decisions about what's acceptable and what's not, that is part of the judgment for an application like this. In March of 2018, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court established guidelines for the use of Community Preservation Act funds for church buildings. They recognize that churches are historic resources, and the SJC established a three-pronged test to determine whether such funding is permissible. The Supreme Judicial Court used the same test as for the use of taxpayer funds for private schools and charitable institutions. The first of those prongs is the purpose of the grant. In this case, it is to responsibly repair age and element related damage to features of a historically significant building that is widely used for both for and by the community within a recognized historic district. The second prong of this test is the extent to which the grant aids the private institution. Public safety and the shared appreciation of the beautiful Cohasset Common are matters of common concern and community concern. The only separable value of such work is the fact that the small and aging membership of Second Congregational Church cannot commission this work on its own. A substantial amount of work has been done over the years to take care of this building and to sustain it as a resource, both for the congregation and for the wider community. There are always trade-offs. A good many less expensive and more immediately demanding maintenance and sustainability projects force the church to put off the big ticket work described in this application. Without grant support, that is likely to remain the case. And I'd like to actually augment it. Aspects of this project are the kind you can only take on in all at once. So it's not even a matter of not having done regular maintenance, because we have. SCC has been prudent in its choices about how and where to spend money. In this instance, painting and the other things that are needed for this part of the building, without properly preparing and repairing damaged wood and compromising on the safety for the sake of appearances, both for the portico and for the windows, would have used resources we could not then recover and only delayed the more fundamental work. The last point that the judiciary established was whether the grant avoids the political and economic abuses that led to the passage of the anti-aid amendment in the beginning. To the best of our knowledge, no political or economic abuse could ensue from this request. The search of Community Preservation Act funding granted to Massachusetts churches between 2017 and 2020 identified 59 instances of CPA grants awarded to churches for building-related projects. Those grants exceeded $5.5 million. They ranged from less than $10,000 to over $400,000 and averaged 93.8, with a median grant of $50,000. Surprisingly few cited matching requirements. SCC's last capital campaign was launched in 2014 and ran through 2017. The goal was to raise $300,000 for an extensive list of repairs and renovations at both the church and the parsonage. The campaign brought in $166,000 and is indicative of our capacity. Still, that money allowed for roof repairs and replacement, refurbished floors, replaced carpet, renovated bathrooms, necessary appliance replacements, upgraded plumbing and electrical, interior and exterior painting, a full LED lighting conversion, and adjustments to meet current building codes in both of our buildings. The capital campaign funds were fully expended by 2018, and incredibly efficiently so. In-kind donations of time and talent by church members, friends, and local professionals stretched our available dollars substantially. And an additional gift allowed us to repave the dangerously uneven driveway and handicap parking area this summer. In addition to the continuing work that we do to maintain our building, there is a regular building maintenance budget of $4,000 a year out of our operating budget. Separate monies are provided for the parsonage. Projects like painting the sanctuary ceiling, repairing the arched glass windows that bring light into that space, and replacing the badly damaged door to the handicap access are still on our horizon. Those are projects for which we do not anticipate outside assistance. We'll continue to leverage the resources we have as best as we are able. Key to this application is the recognition and the desire to be recognized for the ways that this beautiful building on our beautiful common is a community resource. We are committed to community and to social concerns. SCC both started and housed the Cohasset Food Pantry from 1993 until it moved to a larger space. We continue to be a collection site for the pantry and a consistent participant in support of holiday and other special food distributions. The picture you see there is actually the Safe Harbor Youth Ambassadors who did their training with us a couple summers ago and regularly have activities that they are the space is made available for them. Second Congregational Church introduced and still houses the office, storage space, and regular gatherings of Cohasset Appalachia Service Project. Retired Minister Gary Ritz introduced Cohasset Youth and Families to the Appalachia Service Project in 1989. If you've ever been in that parking lot when everybody climbs on the buses, it's an amazing thing. Since then, annual service trips to make homes safer, warmer, and drier for some of the poorest families in West Virginia, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee have become a town institution, and for so many youth, a life-changing rite of passage. With allowances for COVID-related limitations, other community gatherings at SCC have included monthly meetings of the Cohasset Garden Club, who lists us as their address, weekly meetings of a local AA group, community Tai Chi meets on cold or wet Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays all year. We've hosted monthly movie nights, co-sponsored with Cohasset Safe Harbor Coalition, their Guiding Good Choices parenting classes, and related parent coffees, with coffee supplied by Seabird. That again is a Safe Harbor project. We've hosted the Safe Harbor Youth Ambassador Training and the Artist's Way Adult Education Program. Provided judging space for the 2018 Earth Day Arts Contest. We're doing it online this year. And have a hot chocolate waiting and warming center for the Thanksgiving turkey trot. A conversation space for the budding Cohasset Conservation Coffee, which provides gathering space to share environmental concerns, resources, and current actions in town and in the region. Coincidentally, co-led by Katie Holden. This was the turkey trot a couple of years ago. The first year we did it, the temperatures were around in the 4 and 5 and 6 degrees. And it was such a popular hit that we've continued to do that, with the exception of this year when we didn't have a turkey trot. SCC's building also serves to build up the sense of community that makes Cohasset more than just a place to live. Who has not come for strawberry shortcake or grabbed lunch from the grill tent during the South Shore Arts Festival in June? Or how about chowder when it gets cold? SCC's commitment to the village fair continued even when other churches on the common stepped away. Today, the town's churches are all involved once again, cooperating in our efforts to usher in the holiday season and throwing open our doors to make Cohasset a reliable destination on the first Saturday of December. And here in the middle under the food pantry sign, that's the Metco wreaths. Those are distributed and sold out of the front of our building every year. And we're not just a gathering place. SCC's historic building is also a home base for outreach and in support of the town and the region. Our outreach partners include Carolina Hill Family Shelter, Dove, Interfaith Social Services, Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, Wellspring Multi-Service Center, St. Francis House Special Olympics, and Father Bill's. SCC members volunteer with Cohasset Senior Center, Safe Harbor, the Social Services League, and on a number of town projects and committees. To the best of our ability, Second Congregational Church on the Cohasset Common, next to Town Hall, is a town-focused church. We're asking for town support to restore an aging building which needs more than our congregation is able to provide on our own. We're grateful for the chance to ask for help with the project outlined here, to restore and make safe the face of this building. It's the place where everyone comes in. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions from the board? There's got to be at least one. Tom Callahan? You're muted, I think, Tom.
No one is questioning the role of the church, Second Congregational in the community. And I've been to ASP 6 times. My late wife was an active member of this church, and I'm not questioning it at all. But the state constitution and the Acton decision, to me, don't give as much wiggle room as people think they do. And I'm fairly strict in my own personal beliefs about separation of church and state, and I can't support this.
Okay.
And it's a tough one because it is a historical building in a historical district. It's a tough line, but I don't think that case gives you the wiggle room you think it does in those tests. And I think the tests were kind of understated, like that they were so easy to pass and easy to meet. They're not.
Well, Tom, I am not a lawyer, and I appreciate that perspective, and it's certainly shared in other quarters. It's also not a clear cut decision, which is evidenced by the number of circumstances where requests from churches have been considered both appropriate and fundable.
Does anybody know what happened?
I'm sorry.
What happened in Acton after the decision, after the court decision? What happened in Acton? Does anybody know?
Yes, they actually separated out the projects. There were some aspects of the initial ask that clearly fell within this is religious. They were stained glass windows. There's a religious component to this that is for the benefit of the worshiping community, but not really others. And that was discounted. There was a substantial other component of the ask, which was for community used space and the parsonage. And that was all part of the church's property that was accepted.
By who? I mean, the SJC sent it back for consideration. What happened?
That part was funded, I believe. I don't believe that unpacking either Acton or other cases in this instance without perhaps consulting the lawyers directly is as important as determining whether, for the sake of this town and this committee, the project that we are asking for help with is legitimate, both within the law, and I think that there is a strong case that it is, but also within our community for the way that we participate in community groups as well as being a presence on the common.
Again, I'm not questioning that, and that's, with all due respect, that's an emotional appeal. The Article 18 of the state constitution is pretty clear. And again, I think that decision was pretty clear. And it's not easy to give money to a church, nor should it be. And the court made it clear it shouldn't be. And I just, I can't see doing it. I'm very strict about the separation of church and state. I don't know why it's such a difficult concept for people, why it's beneficial to have a separation of church and state, but I'm sorry, I just can't support this on principle.
Understood.
There is precedent within Cohasset. This committee has supported window replacements in the Unitarian Church. So,
and I wasn't. And if I was on the committee at the time, I would have voted no. I don't know if when I was on the committee back at its founding a long time ago whether we ever dealt with a church project. I can't recall back then, but I don't feel bound by the decision in the Unitarian Church, which I disagree with.
Russ?
Karen? I'm sorry, Susan?
Yeah. I think ordinarily, I would feel if this building were not where it's located on our iconic town green, I would not be as inclined to be supportive. But to me, our town green is such a unique and very special piece of Massachusetts. It's someplace that is truly unique, and I think that to maintain the presence and the appeal of the historic town green the way that it is, it's important for all of the buildings that are on that to lend themselves to that. I thought your presentation was very well put together, and I commend the SCC for sharing the cost 50-50 with what you're asking for. I understand that the use of the space is for many, many community type projects. And considering that there have been other cases, many of which have been in other communities that have been upheld, I don't find the stumbling block that that you do, Tom. I mean, I don't want to get this, you think this, I think that, as far as individual members of the committee. I just think, it's important for us to represent our opinions. And my opinion,
I agree.
in my opinion, is that I would support this. I'll leave it to others to express their thoughts.
I would just make a point about other towns who say they've been passed. Well, I'm not aware after the Acton decision whether any has gone to court. So they may have passed locally, they may not have been challenged like the Acton decision was. But one of the decisions about the one part of the project that the court sent back for reconsideration, when Acton originally voted on it, they had placed a historic restriction on the project, and this was the master plan part of the project to rehab the building itself. And I'm assuming if Acton went forward with this after the court decision, they still had that historic restriction. And I just wonder if anybody on the committee or SCC has considered that, or anybody know about what it is exactly that Acton imposed upon that project. I don't.
Well, let's see what other people feel.
Russ, Eric here. You and I, as an active member of St. Stephen's, anyone who's actively involved with the church understands that the structure of the church is something which is a financial burden for the congregation these days, whether it be St. Stephen's or the church is actually on the common. When you and I discussed this type of project 6 years ago, we got into the complexities of historical preservation restrictions and all the limiting factors to that, to the point where St. Stephen's decided not to go ahead with that. Is that still the case now, that we would have a historical preservation restriction on the church at hand if they go ahead and receive CPA money? Because it seemed that was necessary 6 years ago when you and I discussed it for St. Stephen's.
It is still necessary to have one.
Okay, and the second congregational church would have a restriction on what portion of the building? How does that work out, Russ?
It would be on the facade of the building. In the SJC opinion, and I've asked town council to give me a letter discussing that. I haven't gotten it as of now. If the work is being restricted to historic features, they were more in favor of it rather than things that were religiously based. Although in the case in Nantucket, there were Tiffany stained glass windows that were restored with CPC funding.
Yeah.
And they had iconographic, religious importance.
I guess my initial opinion, having heard the tremendous presentation, is that this kind of assistance to a church would be useful for all the churches in the center of Cohasset. And I'm sure St. Stephen's will be next in line looking for assistance to maintain the exterior of the church, the historic facade and all of that. So I see this as, opening up Pandora's box, and it'd be very hard to maintain this in a restricted way just to the church at hand. But it'll be a broader issue, right? Maybe my house on the common, maybe I can get something for my porch because it's very old.
The thing with the other churches is not necessarily some of those would qualify under the requirement to be listed as historic by the local historic commission. St. Anthony's, for instance, I don't know that that has a historic designation by the local historic commission, where I'm sure Second Congregation does.
And I don't think individual houses are hosting community activities on an ongoing, frequent basis.
Russ, could you elaborate on what ruling you've asked the town council to give you?
An opinion, he's not going to be able to tell us that, you know, this is correct or not, but the parameters under which the SJC ruling would allow you to make a grant such as this. You know, sticking with the historic aspects of it. One of his questions was, you know, what are they going to restore as it's the outside? If you were to be looking for work on the altar, that wouldn't qualify. So I want him to give us something showing what kind of parameters we have under the SJC ruling.
Can I just say,
Can I speak?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So I guess looking at it, it's an historic piece of property on the commons. It's an historic building. I guess where I worry is if you're restoring the facade, you probably would be restoring the steeple. And there's not many buildings I know of that have a steeple that's not a church. So from the monies going into it from a town to a church, it looks like this would be supporting a church with town monies. And I have a hard time saying that this would not be a violation of church and state. And I think I would lean towards not supporting this. If we're going towards a common room that was a build out for a new senior center or a common room, that would be a little different. But the facade, to me, thinks towards the church's responsibility to do the facade, do the steeple, and do, you know, the belfry, for example. That's my view.
Is there value in waiting for the town council's opinion?
Anybody want to weigh in on that? I mean,
Well,
sure.
Yeah.
If we're getting something momentarily and we can meet next week on it, what do we have to lose? Is how I'm looking at it.
May I say a word?
Sure.
Just about, we don't have a steeple. We only have a bell tower, which is routinely used for town purposes. Every time we have a parade or another, or a like the 9/11, the Memorial Day, the Veterans Day, the town calls and asks us to ring our bell. The decorations on the top are the same ones that are on the library. There, it is a historic symbol of Cohasset. I say that only just by way of perspective, because who looks at the top of the church?
Right, I understand, but I'm using that saying that the facade of a church, there's, okay, a bell tower. There's bell towers in other places that are carillons, but again, a bell tower oftentimes is in a church, and this happens to be a bell tower in a church.
Fair enough. I wasn't seeking to argue, just to clarify.
Hey, Russ.
Yes, Michael.
If the CPC were to vote in favor of this grant, and you know, some individual or group were to challenge the finding and take the town or the CPC to court, how does that play out? Do you know, or is it? I'm just wondering, in terms of the cost of defending the decision and, if there's some kind of finding against the town / CPC, where do those funds come from?
As I understand it, both Paul and Chris Senior, if you were acting in a legal capacity within the confines of whatever act it is, that you would be given individually, would be represented by town council.
That's correct. You'd be indemnified by the town. But you would still have to, as a CPC versus state of Massachusetts or Commonwealth of Massachusetts or whoever would be against you, you'd be supported in court by the town.
Callahan?
Yeah, I mean, just to explain the process a little bit, like what happened in Acton, an injunction was sought in Superior Court. It was denied. Actually, the judge in the trial court let these things go ahead. And then the SJC blatantly said no on spending money on stained glass windows. And then they sent it back for further consideration by the trial court in the town on the other. So when you're asking for an injunction to either do something or not do something, that's going to be the decision. The town's not going to get fined monetarily. There's not, it's not going to be a cost beyond what we're paying our town council. It's just, will we be able to do it or will we not be able to do it? That'll be the point of the injunction. Russ, I wanted to ask you a question. Did you, in your remarks a few minutes ago, did you say that the Acton decision allows for this to happen?
It gives guidelines.
Because I read it completely differently. It did not say anything one way or the other. It actually said no about one part of the funding, and it made no conclusion about the other. It just sent it back. The Acton case should not be read as a green light. It's a yellow light at best.
Isn't each case unique to itself?
Yes. Yes, and that's all the Acton case was a yellow light at best. It's not a green light to just say you can approve these things. It's case by case. It's what it's being used for, what the money that should have been spent on this, what is that being used for? I mean, that case spoke so much about, deferring maintenance or not being able to afford something means it's, and asking the town to pay for it is freeing up money to supposedly do church-related and religious-related business. Karen said, they have a budget for maintenance. Well, that's fine. But when you don't have that budget, if you look for the town to pay what you should otherwise pay for, that runs into the problem. And that's what the court said. And you have to scrutinize it very carefully. That's why the results after that court decision, that's, I think, is very critical to know. And if there have been 59 decisions in favor of funding church requests since, okay, that tells me something. It also, I'm not aware that anybody's challenged them either. So the SJC sort of left us hanging with the Acton decision and hasn't been given the opportunity to follow up on it for more clarity. But it's not a green light.
Well, that's why I think there's some merit in getting a reading from the town council as to what he thinks.
Well, I think he's going to tell you what the Acton case says, and nobody knows what to do with it after that. They left everybody hanging by sending the master plan part of the Acton Church's proposal back for reconsideration.
But if there have been 59 subsequent approvals of church-related grants, it would suggest that at least the body of law or practice has not resulted in endless suits.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm going to guess that in most of those 59 cases, the intertwining of historical district or historical significance has come into play. And I think the church just made, a church in another part of the town that's not historic and just asked for general maintenance money, they're not going to get it. So I realize the line between, the historical preservation duty of the CPA, and this is a really close one, but
The town,
read Article 18 of the state constitution. It's pretty straightforward on what you can't do.
it strikes me that, yeah, it's straightforward in its exclusions, but it also, I think, well, we wouldn't be having these cases if, and they wouldn't be difficult if they weren't confusing. But the town certainly does have
We didn't have a CPA in 1917 when they last amended Article 18. That's the other thing. We've created this new animal since then, and we don't know how it plays in with the Constitution.
Susie
the town has
Wadsworth.
The town has a clear stake in this. I don't think it's in the town's interest to have the church fall down or be a mess. So, I mean, there is a stake that the community shares at some point. And so to try to clarify, excuse me, where those lines are legally is, I think, worth at least involving the town council as a step.
I agree.
And Susie, since you're our, Russ, can I ask for?
I was trying to speak. First of all, it's the
historical, so let's hear from you.
The location is a little bit different from just being a historic building. It's in a registered historic district. And I assume the church has spoken with the folks on the district commission. I agree that the outside should look good, and that it needs to be painted. I have a little difficulty with what is, again, deferred maintenance versus restoration and rehabilitation. The second point that I want to make is I view the whole building as a church, whether it's the inside or the outside. It's a structure that is a church. I would be very reluctant to approve it without a very, very strong opinion from council before going ahead. Because not only are we representing the CPC, we're also representing the town, and we want to protect the town from any potential fallout from our decisions. And it's not easy to say, gee, I don't think we should spend the money to have the church painted. But by the same token, we have a bigger responsibility, and I could not support it as much as I'd like to, just because it's a historic building that deserves attention. But I have an awful lot of difficulty with the anti-aid component. Now, when we talk about other buildings or other churches that have been okayed, I don't know what those decisions were based on. I don't know what they asked for. I know the average amount of money was it $90,000? Some of them had more historic interests than what the Second Congregational Church has. In other words, did a very important event take place there? To my knowledge, that's not the case with the Second Congregational Church. If it were a significant place of a significant historical act or somebody famous, then I might, and I probably would lean the other way. But as it stands now, it is a lovely old church, of which there are many in New England. And while I'd love to see it painted, I think the church has to look to other sources of funding than CPC. And I want to stress that I'd be very concerned that it just opens up the town to legal challenges. Whether it happens or not, I think is irrelevant, but the possibility, I think, is quite strong, and that's why I would vote against it. Does that answer your question, Susan?
Yes, thank you. It's not of my opinion, but I'm glad to hear yours.
Karen?
Again, I am not here to offer arguments to any of you. This is the CPC conversation. I would like to offer a few insights about the project that we're proposing and the historicity of Second Congregational Church. The work that we are looking to do right now is not because we didn't take care of the building. There are points when you've got buildings that are as old as ours, that there is substantial structural kind of work that needs to be done. So we have painted. We've had a long standing tradition of painting one side of the church at a time so we could spread the costs out. And we've done that consistently. The reason that the front, the place on the common, has the appearance that it has right now is because it was deemed irresponsible to paint over a portion of the building that truly did need substantial capital improvement, because it's old. Now, with respect to the irony of the history of our church, the founding congregation in Cohasset was ours. It was the tradition of the Orthodox, who were given the rights to be the second, I forget that it wasn't second parish, but it was the subset of Hingham. When the church was established, that is currently First Parish, it was with the understanding that the traditions would be continued. When the split happened in 1824, it was rooted in the people who had founded the church found that they couldn't stomach what was going on, and so moved across the street. The significance of that for the town of Cohasset was not only the fact that we chose to move instead of taking a stake in the building, but that was the moment during that period of significant history in New England that the town of Cohasset ceased to pay the pastors, because now there were two. And that was the beginning of another fairly significant piece of the heritage of the Commonwealth, which was founded by the churches. It's difficult because we're both looking at the history and a very legitimate concern about how that aligns with contemporary interpretation of the law. And I completely respect that. The substance of both the history that this church has provided to the town, but also the continuing participation in the community's life, is the reason that we felt it appropriate to come before you. Thank you.
Anyone else from the committee have any questions or comments?
Can I ask, what would the historic restrictions be that would be placed on this list? If this was approved?
You have to speak up, Tom.
Oh, I'm sorry, I moved away from the speaker. We talked earlier about historic restrictions, and you said they would have to be imposed. Do you know exactly what those would be in this situation?
I don't know exactly, because I too am not a lawyer, but it's my understanding that it would require them to get permission from whoever holds the restriction. In this case, it would probably be the historic commission in order to do work on the property. And that, I think, is the basis of the SJC saying that it restricts the church's right to free speech because they have to get permission, if you will, from a government entity.
To change the facade in the future, correct?
Right.
I mean, would it be limited to the work they're doing, correct?
As far as I know, yes.
The organization that would have the last word and what could be done on that is the Cohasset Common Historic District, not the commission. I'm not absolutely clear on this, but if public funds are given to the restoration, then the work has to be done in compliance with those standards set out by the Department of the Interior. In other words, I want to make sure if you're giving money to a historic restoration or renovation or whatever, that there are certain guidelines that they have to go by. And one of them is that whoever does the work has to be familiar with historic preservation.
Might it be wise that we know what these restrictions specifically would be before we vote on this? That's something town council can tell us too.
That's why I approached him today.
In the interest of time, Russ, I'd like to make a motion that we defer votes on this until we hear from the town council, because there are multiple aspects of this that he could at least enlighten.
Yeah.
I second that.
Okay.
Second your motion, Tom.
Thank you.
We'll take a roll call vote. Paul Schubert,
Aye.
Tom Callahan,
Aye.
Susan Sardina,
Aye.
aye. Susie Wadsworth,
Susie Wadsworth, aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and Tom Reardon,
Aye.
and Eric,
Aye.
and I will vote aye as well. I hope to get that. It may even be in my email when I get home, and I will distribute it as quickly as I get it. In the meantime, if you want to send me any other questions that you think you can send by him, please do it, and I will forward them to Mr. Durensis.
Thank you.
I'm also prepared to make a meeting to adjourn, a motion to adjourn.
Well, yeah, we did not get the minutes from the last meeting.
Hey, Russ, I'm getting ready to throw you out.
I want to,
but it's not going to make it any quicker if we keep getting interrupted. So
Can I say thank you?
thank you.
You're welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Before we leave,
there any
I'd like to make a comment.
Yep.
Okay, earlier tonight, I voted against the 100% contribution for one of the Little League things. And the reason I did that was not that I was against the project, but when we have an applicant come to us offering to pay or contribute a certain percentage or any percentage, I think we ought to take that in good faith and not say, gee, we don't want your contribution. We're willing to fund it 100%. And this was a very small amount of money on both sides. But I wanted to explain why I voted the way I did.
Okay. Any other member comments?
Russ?
Yeah. Susan?
Okay, I was just going to ask, since obviously we still have a good deal of territory ground to cover in our next meeting, would it make sense for us to meet at 6:30 instead of 7? I don't know what anybody's feelings are on that. If that's too difficult.
I think Tom maybe 7 seemed to work well for Tom. Does 6:30 work for you, Tom?
Yeah, other boards do it. I'm religiously against it, by the way, but I'm against daytime meetings. I did one today for another town board, but yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
It just keeps us from going quite so late if we've got a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, that's fine by me. So we'll set one up for next Monday at 6:30. Are there any other member comments?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of 3/8/2021.
Yet.
Angela emailed me earlier that they weren't ready to be voted on tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, and there are no public comments? All right, Paul, make that motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? It better say aye. Aye. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Unanimous.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Thanks, Russ. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
Mike.